Please welcome to the stage the MoCase Professional Development Chair, Dr. Trevina Costello.
Good morning. It is my pleasure as the Professional Development Chair to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Mills Rogers. Mills, Mr. Raj, is a nationally recognized speaker, author, and educational consultant who has inspired audiences at more than 150 schools, districts, and conferences across the country. A former classroom teacher turned advocate for equity and student success, is the best known for his signature keynote, being a champion of kids in practical, high-energy professional development sessions through frameworks like the PACE, NEEDS, and You're Welcome. Mr. Raj equips educators and leaders with tools to strengthen relationships, improve campus culture, and meet the diverse needs of students and families. His authentic style, humor, and passion remind audiences that champions aren't defined by position, but by the daily choices to impact lives.
Please give a warm welcome for Mr. Mills Rogers.
Welcome to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Today, our goal is to lead. You're going to find that I love acronyms. Why? Because acronyms, frameworks, they're easy takeaways when you come to conferences like this. So today, our goal is to lead. We're going to learn about ourselves as leaders. We're going to empower ourselves as leaders. We're going to affirm our purpose, and we're going to develop our knowledge and skills. At the end of the day, when you are a leader, you have to be in a constant mode of development, because you got to set the stage, you got to set the prototype, the model for the people that you are leading. So that's why it is so important. Leadership reflection, something I want you to be thinking about today. How are you creating space for the staff that you lead? How are you encouraging them to grow? That's something as leaders that we always need to be thinking about. And so moving along, a little bit about myself and my why. And it's weird because I didn't even really realize it, but I'm about to share with you how this is almost a full circle moment for me. And it just came to me today. Somehow, it's crazy. that it just really hit me about an hour or two ago. And again, I'm going to share with you why this is such a full circle moment for me, and I hope I don't get emotional up here sharing that with you. I've come all the way from Austin, Texas, but I'm originally from a little small town in Louisiana called Ville Platte. Has any one of you in here heard of Ville Platte, Louisiana? I know it's kind of hard for me to see even with my glasses on, but I wouldn't expect. If you have heard of it, great, but if you haven't, it's okay. But it's crazy because, I get the opportunity to travel the country, and sometimes I do get a person in a random place like Idaho. I was in Idaho earlier this year, and someone had heard of Ville Platte, Louisiana, but their husband was from down there. So that made a lot of sense. And so, yeah, I'm from Ville Platte, which, by the way, stands for Flat Town in French. And it is very flat, very easy to ride a bike around and everything. And so, yes, I'm from Ville Platte, Louisiana. I went to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And then from there, I joined the Army as a mental health specialist. And so I served 5 years in the Army. After I finished my time in the Army, I transitioned into education. Now, the picture on the right, that's kind of my claim to fame. As you can see, there were these things called magazines back in the day, and I was in Education Week. I was actually in the magazine, Education Week. I was a special ed inclusion teacher in San Antonio, Texas, at Nimitz Middle School, and we were killing it with our inclusion program. And so the school district I was with, a pretty prominent school district in San Antonio, they ended up having Education Week do a feature on us. And they took a picture of your boy in action, working with a student. I remember the kid, well, of course, the kid's name is right there. But of course, I do remember his name. Now, I'll be honest though, when I look at that picture, I kind of cringe. Not because of how my hair looked or what I was wearing or anything like that, but I kind of cringe because I'm standing over the student. And I know that's not best practice. But hey, my alibi was that was just my second year teaching, so you gotta show me some grace with that. Plus, out of all the inclusion teachers we had on campus, they put me in the magazine. So again, I'm gonna beat my chest because of that. Now, my why, picture in the middle, that's me and my oldest daughter, India. And so let me tell you a little bit about India. Like any expectant parents, her mother and I wanted a healthy child. And on November 26, 1997, now what typically happens around November 26? Yeah, Thanksgiving. Well, the day before Thanksgiving, the turkey came out the oven. India Rogers was born. Nice and brown, 7 pounds, 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes. And for the next 18 months or so, things went well. India hit all of her milestones. She started crawling at the appropriate time. She started walking at about 11 months or so. And she started even saying some words around that time. Around 18 months, we started to notice some changes with India. She stopped saying those words. She started having tantrums. She started suffering from insomnia. And it sounds so weird to say a kid is suffering from insomnia. But yeah, she was suffering from insomnia. And so, of course, like any concerned parents, we took her to the pediatrician. The pediatrician at the time, this was in 1999, he was like, hey, development of kids, kind of has its ebbs and flows. Let's just keep an eye on it. Sounded pretty reasonable. We were with it. And so, yeah, we decided, hey, we're just going to keep an eye on it. We were just very hopeful. And so we transitioned into the year 2000. Anybody remember what was supposed to have happened in the year 2000? Yeah, Y2K, right? Bank accounts were supposed to be wiped out. The electricity was going to go off the grid. And the world was going to shut down. Little did we know that prediction was off. by about 20 years. So with the pandemic, right? So yeah, we had survived Y2K. You know, midnight came and the world just kept going. During this time, I was transferred, I was in the Army, to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, right down the road. And I was stationed at the hospital, working on the psych ward. I was a mental health specialist. And so we took India back to the doctor at that hospital. Of course, you know, we just, again, being concerned. And so again, it was kind of like, yeah, let's just keep an eye on it. One night, working on the psych ward at Fort Leonard Wood, we take turns using the internet and everything because, believe it or not, I know we've got probably some Gen Z folks in here, we might have a few. The internet was not as widespread as it is now. And so a lot of us didn't have it at home at that time. And so we would use it at work. And it was okay for us to use it at work for research or schoolwork or whatever else we were doing. And so one night it was my opportunity to use the computer because I was working overnight. And so it was pretty quiet on the psych ward at night. And so for some reason, autism was put on my spirit. Like, man, why don't you look up this thing called autism that you're hearing about on the news and documentaries and that sort of thing. And so I got to the computer, and of course I typed in autism in the search engine, and I was a little bit more specific, autism in toddlers. And a number of sites come up, and so I clicked on a few of them, and they were all pretty consistent as far as the symptoms, which India had. I'm like, whoa, she's hitting all of these characteristics. And so as a concerned dad, concerned parent, what do you think the next thing I'm looking for on that page is? Yeah, what I could do about it. Like, man, can I go to CVS? Can I get something somewhere, Walmart, or whatever to help her out? And so I scroll down, and it says that there are no cures for autism. All you can do is treat certain characteristics. And I'm like, man, that doesn't sound too great. And so we took her back to the pediatrician. The pediatrician referred us out to the University of Missouri. I'm sorry. It's just the fact that this is such a full circle moment, and just to be here, you know, having tracked these roads and stuff, even though it was 20-something years ago, it's pretty emotional. And so, yeah, we went to the University of Missouri at Columbia, and they did their testing and everything, and it came back confirmed that India was diagnosed with autism. And it was a real gut punch as a parent, because I had my ideas of what fatherhood would look like. And that's not to say that you can't be a parent to a child that has those challenges, but here's the reality. And one of the things I like to share with audiences is that, hey, no one on this earth chooses to create a child with a disability that's going to have challenges. Absolutely no one does. And so those parents, like myself, we're pretty much drafted into this. We're drafted into this. No doubt, there are parents that adopt children with challenges. But again, to birth a child, to choose to have a child or create a child, you don't do that with the intention that, okay, that child is going to have significant challenges. And so again, it's kind of like, hey, you're just chosen. And you have to work through it regardless. You have to love your children regardless of whatever challenges. And it brings about a lot of challenges. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And so I share this with you because this is my why. Because I've been an educator. I taught 15 years in public schools in San Antonio. And of course, I've been a lot of PD and everything else. And one of the worst things, in my opinion, is to have a speaker come up here that doesn't really have any skin in the game. They haven't taught on campuses. They are not parents to a child that has significant challenges. They've just gone and gotten a degree, maybe an advanced degree, and then they're coming up here telling you, hey, you gotta be spirited about your job, and these kids, they shouldn't get on your nerves or anything like that. And I know as an educator sitting in your shoes, it's kind of like, well, dude, you haven't done this. It's easy for you to say that. And so again, that's why I share with you where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a perspective as an educator, because I've done it, and as a parent, the parents that you serve. I think it's, again, so important that you understand that about me, so that I am relatable to you, so that I am credible to you. And so, the title of my presentation is Being a Champion for Kids. And so, we're going to talk about being a champion. I think it's only fitting that we watch this famous video right here. And I'm sure the majority of you have seen it, but regardless if you've seen it or not, I think it's important to watch it again because it definitely sets the stage as to what it means to be a champion. You don't need to see this.
Smartsheet has revolutionized the way that I work, and I just can't see a day without it.
We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? And I gave them a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. They said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stay. Years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Every child deserves a champion, an adult will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educated. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
I know that gets you fired up, right? You ready to leave the conference and go back to your school districts and get back to work, right? You don't even need to be here anymore. That's all you need. And so, yeah, being a champion. One thing I want to talk about real quick in regards to being a champion for kids, and this applies to you as leaders, and it definitely applies to those that are in the classroom. it's going to be all about belief. If you believe you can, you can. And so I just want to share a quick story with you. My mom grew up in Jim Crow era Louisiana, in Ville Platte. You probably don't know this. I wouldn't expect you to know this, but Ville Platte is considered one of the poorest towns in the country. Right now, and even back then. And so my mom, she grew up the youngest of 7. My grandparents weren't educated. In fact, they dropped out in elementary school because they needed to work just to survive. And yes, they had a large family, and my mom was the youngest. Even though my grandparents didn't believe, they did believe, they weren't well educated, but they believed in the power of an education. They believed in the value of an education. And so they saw something in my mom. They saw that she had a gift for learning, that things seemed to come easy for her, that she seemed to receive learning well. And so even with the demands of the poverty that they were in, they made sure that she stayed on the right track. And she did so well in school to where she graduated valedictorian. And she received an academic scholarship to an HBCU in Louisiana, Grambling State University, where she went on and graduated. She became the first person in our family to go to college and to graduate. And it changed the trajectory of my family, because now my family was able to see that college was a reality for them and it could make a difference in their lives. And up to this day, it has been truly impactful, because I would say that at least half of my family has bachelor's degrees, and I would say 3/4 of them have went to college. And so again, I share that with you because what we do as educators on a daily basis, it has to do with our belief. And I've been in buildings. I've been in the day-to-day grind of education, and I understand how we all can get frustrated. But we have to believe. We have to believe that what we are doing is making a difference in the lives of the kids and families that we are serving. And as leaders, what you're doing is making a difference in those people that you supervise, that you manage, that you lead. And so again, it all starts with a belief. If you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can. I think we even have a new commercial out where it's kind of echoing that to some degree. And so yes, as educators, as leaders, we have to have a strong belief in what we're doing. That's not to say that we're not going to have our down days, that we're not going to have our frustrating days. But if we're going to truly be champions, we have to have a consistent belief that what we're doing makes a difference. So, move to this next slide. This doesn't always cooperate. And so, getting back to a champion. Ms. Pearson said, a champion connects with kids, doesn't give up, and insists that kids be the best that they can be. I would hope that each and every one of us in here represents that. And as leaders, I would hope that the people that you are placing on campuses have those characteristics. Now, let's be real. Not everybody's going to be at 100 on that scale. But we need them to at least have some degree of this, that they are connected. Now, hey, again, I've been on a campus. I understand that it's difficult to connect with every kid. I get it. Some of them are tough. But we want to be connecting with the majority of them. And here's the great thing about campuses. If you don't connect with the kid, maybe there's somebody else that does. There's another adult that does. But every kid on campus needs a connection with an adult, because they need someone that's not going to give up on them and insist that they can be the best that they can be. Back in the day, Anybody recognize who that handsome young man is right there? That's yours truly at high school graduation. Literally at high school graduation. As I was crossing the stage. Now, I'm not going to tell you what year that was. I'm going to just say I'm a Generation X guy. Leave it at that. Now, that dude right there, I was a pretty decent student, but I wasn't the best student. I wasn't highly motivated. This person right here is my biology teacher. Her name is Miss Johnson. Now, growing up in a small town, you have one school, everybody goes to the same school. And so I heard a lot about Miss Johnson. Bracing myself for her, going into my 10th grade year, taking biology. I heard that she was mean. She didn't play around. You're going to fail her class. Blah, blah, blah. All that talk. So yeah, Mills at 15, going into her class. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so yeah, I was listening to all of that. And so I was really on my P's and Q's. About a month in or so, doing really well in Miss Johnson's class, I'm like, hey, all this stuff I heard about Miss Johnson, man, I don't even know where it's coming from. It doesn't even make sense because she's a very nice lady, and as long as you do the work, you're going to be very successful. One day, Miss Johnson's, circulating the class and everything. She stops at my desk, and she's like, Mills, you're not really living up to your potential. You could be doing so much more. Now, 15-year-old Mills at the time, I'm like, well, Miss Johnson, I got an 8 in your class. I got 100 actually. What do you mean? And she was like, well, yeah, you're passing my class, but again, you're not really living up to your potential. You could be doing so much more. You could open yourself up to scholarships and things like that. Now, me being that Generation X student, 15, I wasn't feeling that at all. Because I did not want to be a nerd. With Generation X people, that was pretty bad. You definitely didn't want to fit into that category. I wanted to be a ladies' man and that sort of thing. So I wasn't really feeling trying to, be that A+ student. And so I'm like, I'm saying to myself in my mind, I'm good. I don't need that. I don't need scholarships and that sort of thing. I'll go to college, but I don't need it. And I know some of y'all sitting here like, dude, you crazy, man? What's wrong with you? But again, that was me at 15. However, I appreciated Miss Johnson for seeing something in me that maybe I didn't even see in myself at the time. And it took a long time for me to actually see that in myself. I also saw her do this with a lot of other students, wherever they were at. It could have been that great athlete on campus. It could have been that struggling learner. She talked to them wherever they were at and tried to uplift them. And so in my mind, she was a champion educator. When I stepped into education, she was the one that I thought about. I'm like, I want to pattern myself after her. And I think as leaders, as educators, we got to have that prototype in our mind of who we want to be like. Who is that person of impact? Why did they impact us? What was it about them? Because those are the things that we can start to embody in our leadership, in our educating, in that sort of thing. And so again, that's why I bring up this point. We have to make sure that we are patterning ourselves after those that impacted us. And so, how can I be a champion for the kids and help my staff do the same? It's going to come down to 4 questions. Who am I? Very important that we figure out things about ourselves, because at the end of the day, that's what we bring into our buildings, our departments, our classrooms. Who are our kids? Understanding what their lives are like outside of school. What are their needs? And then, what is my purpose? Those 4 questions need to be addressed constantly. Not just today, but we always need to be reevaluating these things in order to truly be a champion. And so understanding who I am, defining what truly shapes us as leaders, and what we may be blind to. Hate to let y'all know, but you're not perfect. We do have blind spots, all of us. And so yes, we gotta kind of get in touch with ourselves, make sure that we understand it, make sure that we're not being too judgmental and that sort of thing. And so I have a question for you. We're gonna interact a little bit. You know, it's a big group. You know, y'all are a smaller group. I'd actually have y'all getting up and doing stuff. But because this is a huge group, we're going to interact this way. So I need you to scan that QR code right there. And I want you to answer this question right here. Which student has the most potential for success? Student A, the straight A student. They're quiet, they turn everything on time. Student B struggles academically, asks lots of questions, sometimes is disruptive. Student C, talented athlete, average grades, charismatic, and well-liked. Then student D, creative thinker, inconsistent performance, often daydreams in class. Right now, student B is in the lead. Again, which student has the most potential for success? Right now, student B is in the lead. And interestingly, student A is last. Wow. Straight A student, quiet, turns everything in on time. I'll be honest though, when I was a teacher, and I taught general ed and special ed, and I had administrative certification. And so, I don't know, as an educator, I'll be honest, I was kind of like, I like student A. You know, student A was kind of my dream student. I'm just keeping it real with y'all. I probably would have been like, oh, they're going to be all right. All right, so looking at this, looks like student B is, you know, consistent. Oh, okay, looks like student B and D, they kind of switch it. All right, so it looks like student B is in the lead, and then of course student D is a close second. Struggles academically, asks lots of questions, sometimes disruptive, and then student D, creative thinker, inconsistent performance, often daydreams. Now, let's think about this though. What did I ask? I asked which student has the most potential for success? Did I define success? No, I did not define it. So you basically came up with your own meaning as to what success is. Because I didn't say success in life, I didn't say success in school, I didn't say anything. And so that's something that we have to be careful of when we're talking about who am I as an educator. Your definition of success probably came from what I call your shape. Your shape is your standards, your habits, your attitudes, your perceptions, your experiences. And so however you interpreted success, and I'm not saying how you interpreted was right or wrong, because I didn't define it, but whatever that was to you, it comes from your shape. Your standards, habits, attitudes, perceptions, and experiences. And as educators, as leaders, we have to understand our shape, because oftentimes that's what drives how we build relationships and how we set students up for their needs to be met and how we interact with parents and everything. You are your shape. Now, where do we get our shape from? Where do we get that definition of success, however way you interpret it? Well, I like to say that you get it from what we call cultural conditioning. It's how we come about our beliefs, our behaviors, that sort of thing. And so where do we get cultural conditioning from? We get it from our families, our generational age, our education, location, etc. All of those things impact our behaviors, values, and norms, i.e. cultural conditioning. And so a couple of examples. Gender equality. Here in the United States, legally, on the books, men and women are supposed to be equal. Now, we know in reality that it doesn't always play out that way, but legally, everyone, every adult should have rights, have the same rights. Now, if we went to the Middle East, to some of the countries, they don't have gender equality, and it's okay in their society. That's an example of cultural conditioning, because if we went, let's say, to Saudi Arabia, we would feel that it's really strange that women don't have the same rights as men. Whereas you take maybe a woman from Saudi Arabia and they come here and they see how women are dressed and they're probably like, oh my God, they're going to get in trouble. You know, that's dangerous for them. How dare they? And so, yeah, that's a form of cultural conditioning. Now, another example that I like to use, beliefs about marriage and family. Now, back in the day, my mom used to be on the phone gossiping with her friend Rella. And they'd be like, man, Rella, did you hear about Shirley? Shirley got her a new baby. And yeah, you didn't know about that? Yeah, they've been dating for about, how you didn't know about that? They've been dating for about 6 months. And girl, guess what? They done moved in together. They shacking up. Now, for those of you that don't know, with my mom's generation, shacking up, that was a bad thing. That was like you deserved a scarlet letter on your door. That was something that you just did not do. That was horrible. Nowadays, though, it's okay for people to live together before they get married. In fact, a lot of people, especially millennials on down, will say that, man, that's crazy that you don't have that trial run before you get married. And so that's an example of cultural conditioning falling along generational lines. Because yes, younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, and I say even half of Gen X, that's okay. Whereas you might find older generations that are not okay with it. Same with same-sex marriage. Again, my mom's generation, very much against it. In general. Not saying everybody. But then you find the younger generations, they're in support of it. That's an example of cultural conditioning along generational levels. And so that's where we have to be careful, because as you can see, certain things happen there. Okay, there we go. Man, technology, we have in mind of its own sometimes. Try some AI. So yeah, we gotta be careful, because we can have blind spots based on our cultural conditioning. Again, getting back to who am I? So a couple of examples that we often find, whether as leaders or in classrooms, thinking that, hey, if I treat all my students the same, that means you're being fair. Again, same in leadership. We gotta be careful of that, because that's an easy fallback that a lot of us, if we're honest, we grew up with that idea that, hey, fairness means equality. And we all know, I would hope and hear, that that is not the case. But sometimes it's easy for us to just fall back on some of those things. Another one, believing that your own childhood experience should be the blueprint for success. You know, when I was in school, I did this and that. You know, I walked 20 miles to school and blah, blah, blah. They didn't have this, they didn't have the phones back when I was in school. You know, that blueprint. Again, that's what we have to be careful of as leaders and as educators. Because again, that makes us judgmental. It leads to us being judgmental and condescending and that sort of thing with those that we lead and serve and educate. And then also misjudging trauma as laziness. So again, these are all blind spots that we all can have in regards to understanding who we are, and these are things that we need to address. And so I like to say that I got in shape because here's the thing. Sometimes there's things that we need to change about our shape. And so this lady right here, that's my mom, again. She was a teacher. So she got that degree and she taught for 30 years. Very passionate about education. She wanted your boy right here to go into education. I was like, oh no, I am not going into education. I am not going to school for that. I'm like, I hear you complain about the kids. I know I got bad classmates. Why would I want to deal with that? So I went to school and I did not major in education. I changed my major 3 times. And education was not even a consideration at any stage. And what really confirmed that was I did do some substituting. And the last time I substituted, I did a 1st grade class. Cute little kids running around and everything. I was worn out by 9 o'clock in the morning. I was tired. I'm like, boy, whew, 3 o'clock can't come fast enough. How am I gonna make it? And I had this cute little girl come up to me. And she was like, sir, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 23. She's like, yeah, you're about the same age as my mom. Y'all two could date. Whoa, I'm already taking, okay? I'm taking. And so that was the last time I substituted, and I just confirmed at the time that I did not want to be an educator. However, I shared my story about India with you. And so that changed my mind about being an educator. I would say I got in shape because by the time I got out of the Army, I was thinking like, hey, you know what? Getting into education, I think I would like it. You know, I learned something about myself in the Army that I preferred to be in a position to help people as opposed to other things, other occupations and everything. And so, yeah, my shape changed. And so, in regards to who am I as an educator, oftentimes we need to change our shape in order to do what we're doing even better. And so, I created a diagram to kind of help us understand changing our shape. And so, at the top of it, you see your experiences and your environment. Those are things that are happening to you all the time, right now. And so your experiences and your environment, they're going to lead you to viewing things a certain way, how you perceive them, and giving them a certain level of value, what it's worth. From there, when something happens, your perceptions and values are going to guide your reactions, your behaviors, your feelings. And so if we want to change our shape, what causes us to change our shape? Well, it's information. Information is what causes us to change. And so yes, if you're looking to change the behavior of your staff, you got to give them information. You got to give them the why. You have to give them reasons as to why they need to change, whether it be to do their job better, to have more impact. You got to tap into that. Information is what changes things. Information is what changed my shape from not wanting to be an educator to end up being one for 15 years. And I really loved it. I loved education. And so again, information in the form of coming back to conferences like this, in the form of having talks with supervisors, you know, people that told me certain things that helped me to grow. Information changes things. And so let's move on to the next thing, the next question. Who are my kids and families? I have a quick video I want to show you. Something just to consider. Because as special educators, we know the percentages of kids that receive services, and within that, how many are learning disabled, or how many have autism and that sort of thing. We already are aware of the percentages. But our kids are not monolithic. And so let's keep that in mind as we watch this. And there will be captions on this video that describe each child and adult. And so again, our kids, and again, those that we supervise, that we lead, they are more than just their job. They are more than just a student. And I'm really big on empathy. Really big on it. Because I feel like there is an empathy deficit in this country. Because everybody wants everybody else to have high standards. They want to hold them up to a certain level. And if people don't live up to that level, then it's like, oh, they're horrible. Throw the book at them. But then when it's that same person's turn to experience things, they want grace. And so we need to be consistent with empathy. Now, when I say empathy, I'm not saying that we just give everybody a free pass. No, we hold people to expectations. Even everyone in that video, yes, they were all experiencing challenging circumstances, but we have to relate to them in a way that does display empathy while holding them to standards. Because one of the things I did see oftentimes in education is sometimes you have an overabundance of empathy where everything, again, is just carte blanche, anything goes. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have those educators, those leaders that, they don't have any empathy at all. It's all about results. And so, of course, we need to find a middle ground because that's what's going to impact the most people, whether it be those that we're leading and those kids ultimately in the classroom. And so, again, we want to have empathy, and especially as leaders, it's so important that we model that. Because there's no way that we can expect those that we lead to display empathy if we aren't modeling empathy. And so far from what I've heard, especially from Mr. Wheatley, I love it because the fact that, he gave a vibe of a lot of empathy in what he was saying. And again, I think it's just, again, so important that we model that. And so, another question for you. What do our teachers struggle with the most concerning our students? As leaders, we need to be sitting down thinking about that. But what are they struggling with the most? I know you put out fires all day, every day. But if you had to kind of just sum it up, like if there's something that you can just put your finger on, what do you think they're struggling with? Behavior management, physical behaviors, lack of parent involvement, staffing, understanding them, time management, lack of support. So looking at these behaviors, of course, we can't solve them all at one time, but there may be something that we can put our finger on and say, you know what, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to help my department with this. Maybe with parent involvement. Maybe with classroom management. Scaffolding and differentiation. I know for myself, when I was in the classroom, that was a very challenging one, the differentiation. Scaffolding, not so much. But yeah, that's very practical as far as learning strategies that teachers may need help with. Parents' lack of care. Now, lack of care. I found that most parents, when I was teaching, I felt like they did care. I worked at Title I schools that sometimes had that reputation that parents didn't care. But when I called home, I felt like the parents did care. Now, did their caring maybe look the same way that maybe what I had in my mind? No. And that's where the who am I question kind of comes into play. You got to be careful of that, making sure that we're not judging. That it's okay for it to look different from family to family. All right. right, so again, as leaders, it's so important that we understand what our kids, our teachers are struggling with. And so going to the next question. Here we go. What are the needs of our students? Our students need nurture. They need engagement. They need equity, dependability, and standards. And so as leaders, where do our systems reflect these needs, and where are they falling short? That is something we need to be considering as leaders that lead special education departments. Again, our needs of students, or our needs for students, they all need nurturing, they all need engagement, they all need equity, they all need dependability, they all need standards. Now, of course, we all know that that can look different from student to student, from family to family. And so nurturing, what is nurturing? Positive, supportive relationships and emotional safety. I'm going to go back to not being judgmental, because when we are judgmental, that takes away from emotional safety, and we can't truly nurture. So when we're not judgmental, we're showing that yes, you belong. You are okay. I see you. I support you. We need to be doing that for all the students that we serve. And as leaders, yes, we should be doing it for those that we are leading. And honestly, it might be a little bit more difficult at times to do it for some of those that we are leading. But if you're struggling in that area as a leader, then I think you may have to question either yourself or if that person is the right fit for your organization. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are working in the trenches with kids. And so yes, all kids need nurturing. And we want to have adults in place that live up to this definition. Engagement. Now, a big part of what we do as special educators has to do with parents. And one of the things I saw as an educator is that oftentimes teachers would not have the best way of dealing with parents. They weren't very comfortable. They hated calling them. And to me, that's insane, because if you go to any teacher prep program, if you go to college or whatever else to get your certification, it's proven time and time again that involved parents are significant in student success. And so we have to involve parents, and we have to have skill at connecting with them. And so I created a framework called You're Welcome. Let parents know that they are welcome. It's basically standards that we should have as far as how we communicate with parents. And again, as SPED educators, super important, because we're doing IEP meetings all the time, and we're sending home letters and staying connected with parents. Just the nature of the job involves that. And so we want to have warm interactions with parents, meaning being kind, being courteous. We want to have empathy. We want to hear them out. We should be doing all the talking all the time. Whether it be IEP meetings, whether it be phone calls home, whether it be parent conferences, we shouldn't always be doing all the talking. We need to be hearing from the parents. We need to be asking them what their concerns are. Do they have any questions? And that leads into language, making sure that we're easy to understand. Because here's the thing, man. When I was an educator, of course, I went to many IEP meetings for my daughter, India. And again, I was a special ed teacher. I had the administrative certification. I was a general ed teacher. So I'm a pretty educated dude, right? Got a master's degree and everything. I go to these IEP meetings, and I'll be honest, it's a little intimidating, even with all my experience. And so there was a number of times I thought to myself, well, heck man, if I'm intimidated, how does that parent feel that doesn't have the same level of education I have? What if they just immigrated to the country recently, or maybe they didn't recently immigrate. Maybe they've been here for a long time. What if they're maybe a young parent? Maybe they just don't have the same level of education. How intimidating is it for them in those meetings? They might be fearful of even asking a question because they don't want to come off as looking stupid or being uneducated. And so it's so important that we communicate with parents in a way that is easy for them to understand, and that we also, use that term, check for understanding with them. Making it in an open forum for them, making them feel comfortable asking those questions. Of course, we want to have a collaborative relationship. We don't want to be seen as the authority up here. We know everything, and they're down here. They're just there to listen to us. No, we don't want to do that. Okay, we want to work together because, again, when the school and parents work together, student achievement goes up. So very important that we collaborate as opposed to authority subordinate. We want to be open and transparent. Now, one terrible thing I found when I first started teaching, I had a special ed coordinator that would be like, oh, don't tell the parents that. Don't tell them that they could pretty much put in a complaint if they didn't agree with IEP. And I know that's horrible, right? This was in 2004. That was my very first one. Of course, that undermines trust. And we got to have trust from parents, from families. We want to have multiple ways to communicate. In today's day and age, with all the technology that's out there, we don't just have to use the phone to call home to communicate. We don't just have email. We got apps and everything. And so I would encourage you to encourage your teachers, or maybe have one app that you use for the department to make sure that your educators are staying in touch with parents. Because oftentimes they're only communicating when there's a problem. And we want to make sure that we're communicating when there's success. Because again, that builds trust. And again, trust will help increase student achievement. When we get trust from parents, it's going to increase student achievement. And so, again, we want to make sure that our teachers are communicating when there's progress, when there are wins for their kids. And then lastly, engage follow-up. We want to be intentional. And so, yes, we want to let parents know that they are welcome. Again, this is a framework that I've come up with to make sure that we are engaging parents correctly and appropriately. Of course, the next one is equity. I think as special educators, as leaders, we are very familiar with what equity means. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I think the picture explains it perfectly. It's basically meeting the needs of individual learners, meeting the needs of families. As I said earlier, different families have different needs. You know, some families might need a little bit more guidance with maybe accessing resources and things of that nature. Whereas you have some that pretty much, hey, I researched it online, can you tell me about it? So again, equity is just meeting individual needs. Dependability, pretty easy. Not going to explain that. Just being consistent, being reliable. And then lastly, standards. Service that reflects dignity and care. Excellence is a message. Our standards call for us to take care of those we lead and serve. And I'm going to talk about take care in a few minutes. I'm not going to go into it right now. But those are the parts or the components of needs. See if I can move it. All right, so there we go. What is my purpose? What part of your leadership is helping others flourish, and what part is helping them just to function? understanding my purpose as a leader. Before we can champion others, we must lead ourselves with clarity and purpose. And so that's just rehashing the shape again. Standards, what you won't compromise as a leader, that's relating more to leadership. Habits, what you model. Attitudes, how you keep perspective. Perceptions, how you view your campus or department. Experiences, the wisdom. If you had to sum up your purpose as an administrator in one sentence or phrase, what would it be? Let me hear it from you. I've done a lot of talk. If you had to sum up your purpose, support, collaboration, to guide, support, and educate, to serve, take care of people, teach and support, remove barriers. I like that. I like removing barriers. Because oftentimes as teachers, that's something that we complain a lot about. Man, system, this and that. Creative problem solving, yes. Support the learning of all students. Partnerships, relationships, all of this is fantastic. Lead by example. And again, I'm using these surveys because there's a lot of people in here. And we can learn from each other. There are things that I know each and every one of us in here sees on these surveys, and we're like, that's a great point. Because I know that's how it is for me. Looking at this, like, hey, I haven't seen that one before when I've done this presentation. So, good stuff up here. If you had to sum up your purpose, stay out of speed jail. Oh, sped jail. Yes, you definitely wanted to do that. Stay out of sped jail, man. That's not a nice place. Stakeholders. All right. Awesome stuff. Servant leadership. All right. So, I did a lot of talking. And so, I'd love to get you to stand up for a second. And get with a partner. Get with a partner. We're going to do a quick activity right here. Quick activity. And so what I'd like to do, is take a look at your partner. Just scan it real quickly. Quick scan of your partner. All right, now stand back to back with your partner. Stand back to back. So I need everybody's attention right here. I need each person to change 4 things about your appearance. Any 4 things about your appearance. Both people, you and your partner. And do not peek at your partner right now. Do not cheat. When I see that, do not cheat. Change any 4 things about your appearance. I'll give you about a minute or so to do that. Change any 4 things.
Change? Did we turn around? Yeah, like I can't tell you. Okay. Well, like I changed 4 things.
Oh, got you. Okay. Okay, good. You took your glasses off.
Yes, thank you. I can't.
And you took off your badge.
Yes.
I don't know what else.
Took off my shoes.
Oh, true. I didn't look on down. Yes. Go on down a little more. But what else did you take off?
I counted those as 2.
Oh, good for you.
1. All right, so turn and face your partner and try to identify the 4 things.
Oh, they gave you lots of time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have them done the same thing. I didn't have them. this, and maybe
Yeah.
my earrings and
I know,
my
I
shoes.
thought about that, but I'm like, these are so little, no
I
one's gonna
know.
notice.
Yeah.
You'll never
I
see.
don't have
Earrings.
change.
No.
Like,
Loop earrings.
when I have lipstick bright red.
Oh,
I mean, I
add
don't
to
know.
it. I didn't think of that. I was like, I don't know if that's fair. Things
I
off.
know. I'm like, oh,
It's not gonna be appropriate. Are we supposed to learn that we don't notice things?
I did.
I've never done that activity.
Me either.
So that was kind of cool.
What is that? Yeah, you kind of get to where you've like done and seen things.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Put the steak back in this thing.
I'm sure there are some of you in here that were able to identify all four things. But I know what was probably most challenging was identifying something small that was changed. Could have been a ring or an earring, something real small. And so I like to use this as a segue into it being about the small things. This is my youngest daughter right here. Her name is Avery. She was in gymnastics for a long time. She's 16 now, 17 in about 6 months, so she's not as cute as she is. She's still cute. She's a cheerleader, so she's a beautiful young woman, but she doesn't look cute like that. This is when she was about 6 or 7. And so, yeah, we used to go to all these gymnastics meets. And you tell me, boy, gymnastics is a costly sport. It costs a lot of money, but I don't know, I should have kept her in it because cheers costing me a lot of money. So, regardless, you can't win either anyway, or either way, with activities for children. But yeah, we used to go to all these gymnastics meets, and at the end of the meets, they announce the winners for all the different events. And so just like any dad, like, yeah, I want my baby girl to win the vault. I want her to win the floor. And so they start announcing the winners, and yeah, let's say that she might have got first place on the floor, routine. But then they do the bars, and maybe she got 5th place on that. And as a dad, I'm thinking like, well, I thought she did well. I thought she did good on the bars. She did just as good as the first place person. I mean, what's up with that? But one day I had to kind of think about it. And I'm like, you know what? It was something small, believe it or not, that separated her from that 4th or 5th place finish from 1st place finish. On any event, it's the small things. You know, for her, it could have just been a hand placement, a toe placement. Could have just been an inch off or whatever. Maybe the way she landed. She maybe landed over here instead of there. Something small. Just like the activity. You know, some of y'all probably couldn't get that 4th thing that they changed because it was so small. And oftentimes it's the small things, though, that can make a big difference. Just like when Avery in her gymnastics, it could have just been a small change that would have made a big difference. And so as leaders, we got to make sure that we're not just thinking so big picture all the time. Because it's those little things, maybe the way we talk to a parent, maybe the way we approach those that we supervise. Those are the things that can maybe make a difference and cause huge changes, have a ripple effect, increase student achievement. Maybe it keeps them in school as opposed to them wanting to drop out. Maybe parents go from being adversarial to being collaborative. It's the small things, small little changes And here's an example right here that I love to show of how something small can make a huge difference.
Kids with autism sometimes are overlooked. It makes us feel important that she sees them. Miss Joanne always has the brightest smile. She makes them feel at home.
I asked them what is it that you need today, Joseph?
Sweetheart, people, sweethead as well.
We're friends, and I love it.
She talks to him directly, just making sure he's heard. It makes his day a lot easier.
If I can make them smile every day, I'll do
The small things. It takes very little time for that Chick-fil-A employee to address that young man, to make him feel validated, make his mom feel good. And that young lady reminds me of India. India is basically nonverbal. She has her favorite meal at Chick-fil-A, by the way. She'll tell you, 12 count up, 12 count up. She'll say it her own way. And so I can definitely relate to that. But I just love what that Chick-fil-A employee does. I mean, think about it. She's on probably a 6-hour, 8-hour shift. And for her to just take a few seconds to address that young man and to know what he wants, and it just makes a huge difference in his life and for his mom. Because again, I know they're experiencing challenges. And of course, it makes a difference for Chick-fil-A because now they got a loyal customer. And so again, it's the small things that make a huge difference. And so purpose lives in the small things. As leaders, we want to make sure that, hey, we're remembering names. We address people by their names. I'm sure you've heard that makes a huge difference as far as how they feel about you, how they react to you. A voice acknowledged. People often just want to be heard. They don't want to be brushed off. A simple check-in. When you're just walking through the school, if you're campus-based, just walking by, talking with teachers and giving them a pat on the back. Maybe offering to buy them a soda. Teachers can't get to the teacher's lounge, a lot of times. And, their time is really pressed. And so, doing something just that simple can make a huge difference. And, hey, I'll go get you a soda because I know you've got stuff to do during your planning period, whatever else. A sincere thank you. And showing up when it's inconvenient. All of those things, as leaders, it shows how we view the job, how we value those that are in the trenches, working with kids on a daily basis. Culture is built in small moments. It's not about the mission statement. It's not about the vision statement. It's all about how we treat people. And that's why I'm really big on empathy. Now, that's not to say that we're perfect. We all are human. We all suffer from frustrations from time to time. But if we're showing consistent empathy, if we're focused on the small things, people will generally show us grace when we do get frustrated. Because they'll understand where our heart truly is. Again, culture. And as leaders, that's what you're responsible for. You're responsible for setting the culture so that we can have student achievement, so that we can help students get the help that they need, so that they can live up to their potential. How we serve as leaders, we should take care. I saw somebody put that serving leadership is our purpose, and that is correct. We take care. We should have a standard of timeliness, a sense of urgency, whether it be with the parents that we're serving or whether it be with the people that we are leading. If they have a need, they want it answered. And we have to be reasonable about it. We can't put it off on the back burner. We have to have a sense of urgency. We want to be accountable. We want to be knowledgeable. We want to empower. Now, going back to the knowledgeable one. Hate to burst your bubble again, but y'all don't know everything. You don't know everything. It's okay. It's okay if you don't know everything. It's all right. And know what? It's okay if you admit that you don't have an answer. As leaders, our goal is to make sure that we find answers. But it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I don't have that answer right now for you. But let me see if I can learn more about it and get you an answer. It's okay to be truthful. That, okay, this is something that I cannot change based on policy. It's not where you're throwing somebody under the bus. We don't want you to throw people under the bus or blame the principal or the superintendent or whatever else. That's not good leadership. But we can acknowledge that, hey, you know what, if the system is limiting us, well, that's a policy that is in place to where we can't change that right now. Maybe there is a way to change it, but maybe it's more long term. Like, hey, we elect people that are on board with supporting us. We want to empower. We want to stay centered. We want to stay, second A. We want to stay actionable. That second A is actionable. So, okay, I'm not perfect. I made a mistake in the house. So, see, I'm not perfect. We want to stay resourceful, and we want to stay empathetic. Okay? We take care. That's what we should be doing as leaders. Okay? And so our takeaway, attention is an act of service. The small things we notice or miss can build or break connection. You don't always need big changes to create big impact. And then in classrooms and staff meetings and leadership, what we notice and respond to sets the tone. Those are major takeaways that I hope you would leave this keynote with. And so your why are kids like you. This is her getting her Letterman's jacket for Special Olympics. Very proud of her. She went to a high school in San Antonio that's an athletic powerhouse, Judson High School. And so for her to have that opportunity to wear their Letterman's jacket, to have her own, means a lot for her. She wears it proudly. And I was so happy for her. These are the kids that you're serving. Your why. Kids like her. You're making a difference. And trust me, as a parent, it meant a lot to me. Whether it was her teachers, whether it was the principal, whether it was her bus drivers, when they talked about her, when they contacted us about anything that was going on, I truly appreciated that. It made a difference. It made me trust them more. It made me feel like they had her best interest